Order filled. Order submitted. Order submitted. Order filled. Order submitted. Order canceled. Order filled. Order submitted. Order filled. Order submitted. Order filled. Order submitted. Order canceled. Order submitted. Order submitted. Order filled. Order submitted. Order filled. Order submitted. Order filled. Order submitted. Order submitted. Order filled. Order filled. Order submitted. Order submitted. Order filled. 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 Order canceled. Order submitted. Order submitted. Order submitted. Order submitted. Order canceled. Order filled. Order filled. Order filled. Order filled.
Order filled.
Order canceled. Order submitted. Order canceled.
Good morning. Yeah, I caught like 30 points on that pump. Was there news for that? Because that was crazy. I'm gonna wait for a pullback before I long again. Yeah, gold dump and NQ just ripped. Oh, it's a peace deal with Ukraine. Let me turn on the stock TV. No, it's not that. It's news.
You know, and the president offered this, right? He said, when we get past and open the government up again, I'd love to have people over for a negotiation. I'd love for the president to have us over for a negotiation. Let's discuss these things. We are finding consensus in our group with Democrats and Republicans. A bunch of us want to solve this problem, love to have the White House involved, and let's all talk about this.
Congressman Gottheimer, thank you.
Yeah, Trader. That's what I saw.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Andrew? Thanks, Becky. Coming up, Palantir's co-founder Joe Lonsdale. Plus, don't miss our interview with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. We're going to talk China, the economy, tariffs, and so much more. Squawk Box returning after this.
Trading at Schwab is powered by Ameritrade, unlocking the power of Thinkorswim, the award-winning trading platforms. Bring your trades into focus.
No, looks like we're going back down.
With robust charting and analysis tools, including over 400 technical studies. Tailor the platforms to your unique needs with nearly endless customization. And track market trends with up-to-the-minute news and
Morning, Sean.
Trade brilliantly with Schwab.
You shouldn't have to wonder which local florist crafts fresh holiday bouquets or if the gifts will arrive before Santa's sleigh.
You know what we can do on Thanksgiving? We can do a 100K Lucid race for members only.
1-800-Flowers. Give beautifully.
And we can do like a FundedFuturesNetwork or whatever. Not FundedFuture, FundedNetwork. We can do a 50K on that on Thanksgiving
Their jeans have dynamic
for everybody.
technology to provide absolute flexibility and make them perfect for everyday wear. The denim comes from some of the best denim mills in the world, so their jeans look great and last a very long time. They are probably the most comfortable jeans you'll ever wear. Head on over to Montenbaum.
So yeah, get your points in.
Perfect balance of fit, style, and comfort.
Well, a little birdie told me rates are taking a dip, which means that dream home won't be there forever. Don't let someone else beat you to it. Start your search today. Make it real with Realtor.com.
Oh, so you corporate types think you're rock stars?
That's as ridiculous as us, being corporate types. Let's begin.
Rockstar move using Workday to handle all our AI agents.
Well, watch me handle my agent, Gary. Bubbly water, no bubbles. So what'd you do this weekend?
The huge.
Shout out to Carmen for using Workday to manage our people and AI agents.
What are we doing?
Just clap.
Saying Shake Shack's big Shack. We took something that
Yeah, I'm waiting for a bigger drop and I'll go long again because the bot's still long. I gotta get out before the data though.
What else do we need for the dinner party? Let me check the Kroger weekly flyer deals on Instacart. Oh, hummus is on sale. Well, in that case, we would have extra appetizers for extra guests. You know what? Maybe I should invite Kevin. Or maybe not.
Yeah, don't fade a bot.
Kevin would have loved this.
Thank you for calling the Bombas Comfort Line. Bombas makes slippers, slides, and comfy shoes. And with every purchase, one is donated. Press 1 for comfort, 2 for cozy, 3 for great gifts. Bombas. Visit bombas.com and shop our big holiday sale.
Coming up, Joe Lonsdale. He's going to join us next. The Palantir co-founder is putting his money behind an AI-related super PAC. He's going to join us next to explain.
For adults with obesity, Zepbound means change.
It's changing what I believe is possible when it comes to weight loss.
Zepbound helps adults with obesity lose weight and keep it off.
Don't take if allergic to it, or if you or someone in your family had medullary thyroid cancer
a
or
drop.
multiple
Oh my
endocrine
gosh.
neoplasia syndrome type 2. Tell your doctor if you get a lump or swelling
Order
in your neck.
submitted.
Stop Zepbound and call your doctor if you have severe stomach pain
Order
or
filled.
a serious allergic reaction. Severe
Order
side effects
submitted.
may include inflamed pancreas or gallbladder problems. Tell your doctor if you experience vision changes, depression, or suicidal thoughts before scheduled procedures with anesthesia. If you're nursing, pregnant, plan to be, or taking birth control pills, taking Zepbound with a sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar. Side effects include nausea, diarrhea, and vomiting, which can cause dehydration and worsen kidney problems.
Zepbound means change. Discover how Zepbound compared to Wegovy. See the study results at compareZepbound.com. Ask your healthcare provider about Zepbound. Explore savings options today.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can it keep me warm when I'm cold?
Wait, no, I'm always hot.
Sleep Number does that.
Can I make my my side softer?
I make my side firmer.
Sleep Number does that. Your ideal firmness and effortless comfort all night.
Can it help us sleep better and better?
Please.
Sleep Number does that. You'll love this for you. It's our Black Friday sale. Recharge with cooling comfort that adjusts to you. Save 50% on the limited edition smart bed.
Order filled.
Hey, Josh, this Christmas.
Order submitted.
Gifted.
Where are your pants?
Was the heart before Christmas and before the night's done. Shooting guard Josh Hart will gift everyone. In his Tommy John underwear, he glides down the stairs with last-minute gifts to show that he cares. Stuck for ideas and don't know where to start? Go to TommyJohn.com and
gift from the heart.
It's the biggest sale of the year at Dick's. Score up to 30% off Nike, up to 40% off hoodies and sweatshirts from Adidas, Carhartt, and more. Plus, up to 50% off basketball hoops and up to 50% off table tennis tables. Shop in-store and on Dicks.com. Don't miss Black Friday deals at Dick's.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. I want to talk about all things AI, tech regulation. I want to do it with Joe Lonsdale, Palantir's co-founder, 8VC founding partner, alongside Perplexity and Mark Andreessen. He is backing what is now called Leading the Future. It's a new super PAC supporting pro-AI regulation. Joe, I want to talk to you about what this super PAC is all about, what the effort is here, and what that regulation to you ultimately looks like.
Good morning, Andrew. You know, this has been an issue we're working on all year. Obviously, close friends with David Sachs and Kratsios running this in the administration.
Order filled.
And listen, we are on the verge of something amazing for our civilization.
Order
right?
submitted.
We have tens of thousands of builders in our country. They're going to bring down the cost of healthcare. They're going to make construction finally have productivity go up, make houses cheaper. Permits should only take, hours instead of months. Just like education is going to be better for all of our kids and personalized. These are all things that are going to fix our civilization.
Submitted.
And yet, on both the far left and the far right, you have a lot of populists who, for really nefarious reasons, are opposing this. There are reasonable people, by the way, who have some concerns, and there's ways to compromise and push ahead for our civilization. But you have a lot of crazy populists. You have a patchwork of just really intense stuff they're doing that would break all of this, and we can't let that happen.
And to you, the thing that you can't break is this idea of states taking this into their own hands. Is that the issue for you?
No. I'm a federalist, Andrew, on most issues. Like, I have teams in 23 states with Cicero Institute. We're watching this, and I think it's reasonable for states to do a lot of things as laboratories of democracy. So in general, I'm actually on the states' right side overall. What's unreasonable is that you had Biden NGOs pushed by the last administration, you have European-like rules, and you have populists trying to put in crazy new regulatory authorities that demonize the builders, that demonize the tech. And if you force us to hop through regulatory agencies in every state, China's going to win and the builders are going to lose. And so the Interstate Commerce Clause exists in the Constitution for a reason. This is one of those examples we've learned from the California emission standards that broke the whole nation. And we're seeing a lot crazier things being proposed now. So I think it's reasonable for states to have some power in a lot of different cases. That's what I want overall, but I don't want to break the whole AI wave by the populists.
Joe, we talked to Alex Bors yesterday, someone I think that you're targeting. I want to show you, I think we've got some of the tape. Let's roll some of that tape for Joe.
They are telling New Yorkers that I am their biggest threat for their quest and unbridled power over the American worker and our energy bills and the safety of America, and they're right.
What do you make of that, Joe?
I think there's always an argument in our country between safety and liberty, and I think people, especially if they're not in the details, are right to be concerned and want to be safe. But Andrew, if you're going to use safety to have arbitrary fines or arbitrary penalties where every state, including the radical blue states like New York, are going to be able to break our builders' waves, that's not okay. Because listen, you have states trying to ban the use of AI in healthcare right now in ways that are going to prevent us from making healthcare cheaper. You have New York State already banning it in education. This is insane. Public schools in New York are not allowing AI. They're not even in any kind of school in New York. You have to call yourself a homeschool to use the AI right now in New York, which means we can't personalize it and lift up the lives of the kids who are not doing well in inner cities. This is crazy stuff, Andrew. And the safetyism is what Europe does. If you want to be a poor civilization where you're poorer than our poorest state, like Europe, then you should move to Europe. But America needs to stay free.
What does the regulatory framework in your mind look like? Because I will say one of the critiques is you hear this phrase safety theater. that a lot
Order
of folks in
filled.
the AI industry talk about wanting regulation,
Order submitted.
but perhaps know that Washington is as broken as it appears to be, and the chances of a federal regulation is so unlikely. We saw this with social media, for example, that maybe, you know, some people would argue, this is the cynical view, that the cynical view is to argue for federal regulation means you're really not arguing for regulation at all.
So I think the federal regulation that people are talking about pushing is transparency on the very largest models. The New York Alex Boris rule says if you have 5 million revenue or whatever, they're going to harass you. Harassing our builders with small and medium businesses or scaling companies promoting disinflation, that's not going to help. If you're going to do something, right, it has to be on the super giant models, on transparency, on how they're, if you want to measure how they're training them ideologically, fine. That's very reasonable to do. But, you know, a random legislator in New York State is not going to stop at the AI apocalypse. They're only going to harass and slow us down and make us lose to China.
Joe, we only got a minute and a half, but I got to ask, Google appears to have leapfrogged in terms of its large language model ahead of everybody else, at least for now. We just heard Anthropic with the new model out yesterday. How do you see the AI arms race as it's playing out, and who may win?
I think Grok was ahead for a while, and they have some very big plans. I think very shortly after, you're right, Gemini, Google leapt ahead. I think Anthropic is doing some really amazing things. I think this is good for all of us. This is exactly what you want. You know, I'm working on hundreds, in my case, probably more like dozens, but my friends and I are working on hundreds of companies on top of these things they're building that are each going to bring disinflation, that are each going to help, hundreds of millions of Americans. The stronger those models get, the more we can bring down costs, the more we could solve great problems. So this is wonderful for me and for all the builders who are trying to use it to help people.
Joe Lonsdale, go Austin. It's nice to see you, sir.
Nice to see you, Andrew.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, when we come back, our newsmaker of the morning, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, will join us after the break. Squawk Box will be right back.
Never lose focus on the life you want to build. And our experienced advisors design custom-built strategies to help you get there. It's time for a wealth management experience as sophisticated as you are. It's time for Corient.
Whodunit? We're looking for a house closer to everything, but we don't know where to start.
Find it with Realtor.com. With Real Commute, it's easy to find a home closer to what's ever close to your heart. Do y'all recycle? Realtor.com.
Oh, we got a WeatherTech gift card.
WeatherTech is the perfect gift for everyone.
May I?
Laser measured floor liners protect carpet in the front and second row. Cargo liner protects the rear. The side window deflector offers more protection.
My turn.
The sink mat contains spills and cabinets.
Something for you too, buddy.
Pet seat safely with a non-toxic pet feeding system. Find these American-made gifts or get a gift card instantly at WT.com.
At IHG Hotels and Resorts, you can unplug for the day or plunge into a long weekend. Savor the moment or savor the details. Earn points for free nights with IHG One Rewards.
Get invested. Join the club. They do a lot of the work so that I am more successful.
So that you can do it at your own pace with some valuable insight you won't get anywhere else.
Join the club with Jim's best deal of the year at cnbc.com/Club Black Friday. Terms and
Order canceled.
Introducing Shake Shack's
Order
Big
canceled.
Shack. We took something that sounds familiar and made it different. 2 quarter-pound, all 100% Angus beef patties made to order, secret sauce, green leaf lettuce, cheese, pickles, and I ran out of time. The Big Shack.
Clear your calendar. You can feel the electricity. Time to get a little unhinged for 3 hours, then start counting down until you can do it all again. Welcome to the wild world of college game day.
back to Squawk Box. President Trump announcing that he will be visiting Beijing in April following a phone call with Chinese President Xi. The two continued their discussions on China's agreement to purchase U.S. soybeans while the U.S. lowers tariffs on China. Joining us right now with more on the U.S.-China trade latest is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. And Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Good morning, Becky. Good morning, Andrew.
Why don't we start with this latest, what we're seeing right now, and what we've heard from this conversation with President Trump and President Xi. The readouts from the two countries were a little different. Obviously, the United States has a very important push on making sure that China does step up its purchases of soybeans. How is that going?
Well, first of all, Becky, to set the record straight, President Trump initiated the call 30 days after the historic meeting in Busan, South Korea, between the two leaders. They have a great relationship. And as far as the soybeans, the Chinese are right on schedule in terms of the cadence of their purchases. Over the next 3.5 years, we're going to see the 87.5 million metric tons purchased by the Chinese, minimum, and they are right on schedule.
There have been some reports coming from China where their take on this talk is a little different. At least what they emphasized in the talks was a little different. They bring up both Ukraine and the U.S. position and the Chinese position on Taiwan. What is the U.S. position on Taiwan at this point?
U.S. position on Taiwan is unchanged. And on Ukraine, President and Party Chair Xi agreed that the peace in this Ukraine conflict, must move forward, and they agreed to work together on it.
Am I right to think that this is a truce, but maybe a little bit of an uneasy truce at this point? How secure and settled are you feeling with where we stand with China right now?
Well, we have a 1 year, what I would say, pause. And Becky, what I feel very good about is the relationship between the leaders, because when the leaders can have calls like this at the highest level, then bad things don't happen. It was the strong relationship, President Trump showing leadership that sort of calmed things down between the two countries. And look, we're always going to be rivals. We're always going to be rivals. That's natural. But are there things we can do together? Yes. We have the relationship in a good place. President Trump is going to do a state visit to Beijing. Xi is going to come to the U.S. for a state visit. He'll also be in the U.S. for the G20 at Doral. And President Trump may attend the APEC summit in Shenzhen in November. So if there are 4 meetings during the year, I think that gives the relationship great stability, and stability is good for the American people and good for the world economy.
Mr. Secretary, I wanted to pivot the conversation. We've been talking all fall with you about the prospect of the president selecting a new Fed chair. And as we get closer to the end of the year, I wanted to get an update as to where things perhaps stand right now.
Yep. So we're going to have the last interview in the second round today, Andrew. We got 5 very strong
25 minutes into YOLO.
With all of them. And Andrew, I'll tell you, one of the things in terms
You'll get a raffle tickets when it's time for the race, and then if you win, you need 10 points. Look at that.
When we started with 11 candidates, is in talking to these candidates, I realized the Fed has become this very complicated operation. It's no longer just a price setting of money. There's this very complicated calculus between the monetary policy, the balance sheet, and regulatory policy. And we've really emphasized...
I think it's enough movement for maybe a 50K, but I'm YOLOing a 150K Tradeify, so I don't know.
The best way forward for the American economy. And what...
Yeah, CPI would move. I don't know about PPI.
Person's point of view in terms of protecting the American people, protecting the economy, and moving forward with the dual mandate.
Can you give us a hint? We often talk about the two Kevins, Kevin Warsh and Kevin Hassett being the front runners. Is that still the case?
Andrew, I'm still got one interview left, so I don't think it would be prudent to give any hints. And I think that there's a very, very good chance that the president will make an announcement before Christmas. But it's his prerogative whether it's before the Christmas holidays in the New Year's. But things are moving along very well.
Mr. Secretary, last week the president, I'm not sure if he was joking or how serious he was about it. He said he loves everything you're doing, but if you don't get the Fed to lower interest rates soon, he might fire your butt.
Well, Becky, if you were in the room, he was joking, and again, I think that we've gotten to this point where monetary policy has gotten very complicated, and it's more than just cutting rates. We've got this balance sheet, and what are we going to do with it? The Fed has taken us into a new regime, and what is called ample reserves regime, and it looks like that might be fraying a bit here in terms of whether the reserves are actually ample in the system. There are all these facilities and operations, the standing repo facility, and I think we've got to kind of simplify things. The other thing, too, is that when you were on with Steve Leisman, you were showing all the Fed governors and the regional bank presidents kind of like baseball cards. And I think it's time for the Fed just to move back into the background like it used to do, calm things down, and work for the American people, set monetary policy on a good course. This isn't this isn't sport.
Oh, I gotta poop.
And I think we just need to calm down. All these speeches by these bank presidents that are just redundant. Why don't they actually just come out and talk about the meaningful issues in the American people rather than the short-term view of the next meeting?
Well, to be fair, the Fed governors, or the presidents of the banks at least, are hearing from people in their districts, and each of them may be hearing slightly different things about where the job market lays, where inflation lays, and that's probably useful information to hear from around the country. I guess my bigger question...
Well, no. But hold on for a minute, Becky. Yeah. Is that but that's not what they're talking about. That's not what they're talking about in their district. They're talking about some macro
Susan
things.
Collins was saying she hears about inflation. She was just on last week with Steve Leisman, the Boston Fed president, and she was saying that she does hear a lot about inflation from within her district. That was kind of the part of that interview that jumped out to me the most.
Well, the other thing I'll tell you that I find very interesting is these regional presidents were supposed to be people from the district, and it was supposed to break the New York hold on the reserve banks, and we've got at least 3, maybe 4 of the reserve banks where people were hired from outside the district. They don't even live in their district. They commute back to New York. So these are New Yorkers. They going out into the country and then coming back on the weekends. I'm not sure that's the way the Federal Reserve was designed.
Mr. Secretary, I'm curious how you grapple with this question. The president, and I believe yourself, talked about perhaps the need to lower interest rates. The president's clearly made that case. If you listen to some of these Fed governors, including Neil Kashkari and others, as they're trying to balance what appears to be, an increase in unemployment or seemingly a little bit more unemployment against inflation fears, how do you balance that in your mind right now, given the sort of clash of those two issues?
Well, Neil Kashkari is a regional bank president, not a governor. And what I think is interesting is that the governors seem to be leaning toward cutting rates. And again, Andrew, what I go back to is we've now got this very complicated calculus. And I believe when you're looking at monetary policy, what happened in the past. You try to have a view of what's happening now, and then you have a view of the future. And I think that the mistake that we're seeing a lot of times is either looking in the rearview mirror. We're flying a little blind with the numbers here, but we've had 2 cuts thus far. And what do we know? That this Schumer shutdown, the longest in history, has shaved 1.5% off GDP. At least an $11 billion permanent hit. So we know the economy hasn't gotten better. So I'm not even sure what the discussion is here.
And Mr. Secretary, I had actually, maybe a curveball, maybe not. It was a curveball, I think, for all of us. I was curious what your reaction was watching the meeting between the president and the mayor-elect of New York, Mamdani. We've talked about the mayor-elect, us on the air before, and some of the president's views about socialism and the like. It does seem like they were at least buddy-buddy on the issue of affordability.
Well, Andrew, I was in the room, and I think that you've got to have some admiration for a candidate who ran a campaign the way he did. It was a great campaign. He is clearly the leader of the Democratic Party now, and I think it speaks to how open-minded the president is that he invited him into the Oval. Senator Schumer never endorsed him. I don't even know if he's met with him. And President Trump wants the best for New Yorkers. I can tell you, my impression of the mayor-elect is he's a young man with a lot of old ideas that have never worked. And point to one example where policies like his have led to anything other than a decline. But President Trump wants the best for the American people, and he hopes that New York will do well. It's easy to run a campaign, but the practical every day of keeping people safe, picking up the trash, making the subways run on time, we'll see.
Secretary Bessent, affordability has certainly been the key word, particularly since those elections, not just of Mamdani, but of the Democrats who won in both New Jersey and in Virginia. And there are a lot of questions about how to get our arms around those things. Healthcare is a big issue. The ACA tax credits being a big issue, too. There were reports that yesterday the president had been considering saying that he would extend the Obamacare tax subsidies, at least for a year, until things can get worked out. MS Now and other places are reporting that that was kind of shut down. But I wonder if you could tell us what the administration's plan is on this front, what you think the best way forward is, just in terms of trying to figure out what to do on both a short-term and a long-term basis.
Well, let's go back and just talk about affordability. On March 12, 2024, I wrote a piece that got published, and it was on the three I's that were hurting the American people. It was immigration, interest rates, inflation. We can come back to it. I would add the insanity on the Democratic side. So we got four I's. This mass unfettered immigration is now under control. The border secure, which said couldn't be done. That was putting substantial downward pressure on working class wages, upward pressure on rent for working people. Two, interest rates have come down. The bond market's had its best year since 2020. So you can mark those off. And now we're working on the inflation and this insanity of the Democratic Party shutting the government down. Now we've got this brinksmanship. They wanted, we'll reopen the government if you'll talk about health care. They wouldn't, and now here we are, kind of on the eve. But I'm not involved in the conversation. I know President Trump wants working Americans to keep more of their money, cut out the insurance companies, and we'll see. He's the president of solutions, and I'm sure that we will have a solution to this.
The front page of the Wall Street Journal has an article today talking about how the economy is kind of addicted to AI spending. It points out that business investment in AI might have accounted for as much as half of the growth in the gross domestic product, adjusted for inflation in the first 6 months of the year, and questions whether if growth in that sector slows down, whether it tanks the entire economy. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, so Becky, 2 weeks ago, I was at my hometown in Charleston, South Carolina. Boeing was doing a substantial expansion of their plant for the Dreamliner, 1,000 new, great high-paying jobs. And I think next year, all the trade deals, and thanks to the tax bill, we're going to see a broadening out of the CapEx cycle. So what we are seeing is that CapEx is spreading out, and historically, CapEx always leads to more jobs. This AI build-out has been tremendous. It will continue to be. And, I would echo what my friend Joe Lonsdale said, that in the competition with the Chinese, this is pass-fail. That if we don't maintain our AI leadership, then everything else we're doing will be put to the side. But I'm very excited about the prospects for substantial non-inflationary growth last year, because also the deregulation is going to kick in. And to go back to your question on the Fed, this is where I think we may be in a 1990s scenario, and Alan Greenspan had the ability to have a framework, be forward-looking, look at the productivity that was going on, and I think we're seeing that same kind of productivity here. So that's why I think you can have lower interest rates, higher growth, and higher productivity.
Secretary Bessent, thank you for your time. We appreciate it, sir.
Good. And tell Joe I hope he feels better.
We will. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Coming up on the other side, ADP weekly jobless numbers, and at 8:30, we're going to get delayed retail sales and PPI data. Squawk Box coming right back after this.
Hey, vacation next week, Lisa. 5 days. Nice. Big win for your alma mater. Thanks. Congrats, bud. How old you? No stay. Ted, a little behind on mandatory training. Let's get it done, pal.
How does he know everything?
I wonder, how long has Pat Brown worked here? Pat, 7 years next month. Thanks for the hard work.
All right, 13 minutes. Let's go.
Hey, Josh, this Christmas, man, what are you gifted? Gifted.
Where are your pants?
Was the heart before Christmas and before the night's done. Shooting guard Josh Hart will gift everyone. In his Tommy John underwear, he glides down the stairs with last-minute gifts to show that he cares. Stuck for ideas and don't know where to start? Go to TommyJohn.com and
gift from the heart.
If you're looking for a broker that's not also your bookie, we invite you to try Public.
You know, every Christmas we get slammed with ads for
a ring for your loved one. The perfect way to say it.
This is not that ad. Because it's not really what this season is about. It's not about the craziness or the shopping or the gifts. It's about Jesus. It's about prayer. Join me in praying every day this Advent on How. God bless.
When I started Walton Goggins goggle glasses, I didn't know how to turn all this fancy prettiness into a classy looking logo. But GoDaddy Aero does, with its magical AI powers. It not only creates it, it slaps that sweet thing everywhere.
At Allegiance, we're a leading provider of engineering, installation, and maintenance. We focus on technically complex buildings like data centers and healthcare and semiconductors and higher education.
I could not be more proud that we're here today. The future begins now.
CNBC. Live ambitiously. Never miss a moment.
Data centers and the financing of data centers, those are like real estate deals. There is debt that has to be serviced in that. It's really about the creditors that are taking, the output of those data centers.
It's going to make it much easier to compare terms. You eventually soon will be able to click and move from one bank to another with the support of AI.
Don't sell just because there's a bubble. But if you look at the correlations with the next 10 years returns, you get very low returns.
Welcome back to Squawk. We got weekly jobless numbers from ADP, and Steve Leisman's got those numbers and a special guest. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Andrew. ADP reporting its preliminary weekly change in payrolls for the week ending November 8th. The 4-week average of weekly job changes declining by 13,500 per week. worse than the prior week, which was actually revised down from minus 2,500 to minus 7,500. This is a new data series and subject to revision. We're figuring out how to work with this. A lot of volatility. The negative numbers in September led to a decline in job growth in the more closely followed monthly ADP report. And it looks like that's where the numbers are headed for November now. Yet the BLS reported unexpectedly strong job gains in September. Here to help us figure all of this out, ADP Chief Economist Neela Richardson. Neela, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Good to be here.
I want to make the scholarly academic observation that this doesn't look good for the job market. What's going on out there?
That's a great observation. Look, we are all learning how to interpret these weekly numbers together. And what I will say is, think of this number as a pulse check. We call it the NER pulse for a reason. It's telling us that the hiring momentum is slower than what we'd expect at this time of the year. And that's for a variety of reasons. The biggest wild card in terms of employment and hiring right now is the consumer. A downbeat consumer, will that resilience that has fostered growth in the second quarter of this year, will it continue? And that's what we're seeing in these hiring numbers. They are delayed, possibly curtailed, but the momentum is not what we're used to seeing at this time of year.
Neela, I don't know how much you want to get involved at the fight over at the Fed, but it looks like Fed officials now are leaning towards more concern about the job market. One of the things they're leaning on to make that observation is your data. It seems to me like you might agree with them that this is a time when there is some concern to be had about what's happening in the job market and that we may actually be losing jobs.
Steve, I think it's really important to make two distinctions. One is hiring momentum, which is weak, and the other is the overall jobs market. And so if you take the unemployment rate that we saw from the BLS in September, 4.4%, if you look at initial jobless claims, which are near historical lows, what that tells you, along with continuing claims, is that this is not the A-plus labor
I think I might just short on the YOLO. I'm sure data's gonna be bad.
It's not collapsing. That unemployment rate
Yeah, bot is long, so I'll do one short and one long.
It's right around the average for the 5 years
We'll see.
leading up to the pandemic. Those low initial jobless claims suggest that we're not seeing massive layoffs, but it is taking longer to find a job. So this is a C plus, C minus labor market. It's not collapsing. Hiring momentum is weak. That leaves us with a Fed who has to make a real gut call on this, I think, my view, on this number, because it could go either way.
Well, we did show a chart in the last hour about the increase of those who were unemployed for 27 weeks or longer. But you mentioned, Neela, earlier for this time of year, and this is a curious time of year. We're hiring a lot of people. In fact, I think we have a chart on seasonal hiring, and in fact,
Yeah, I hope we get a dump and then we can long and open.
workers, a lot of whom are
Oh, that's what I want, so I don't know.
But what's going on right now with seasonal hiring, or what can your data tell us about that, Neela?
Well, this is the holiday season.
6 minutes.
Retail sales. This is 20% of revenues come in the next 3 months, starting with the October Halloween. And so, yes, this is usually a busy time for hiring. And when we dive deep into the granularity of the ADP data, we actually see some interesting trends. One, trade transportation and utilities, that broad sector that includes wholesale and retail trade, did well in the ADP number in October. It was the strongest gainer for that month. So that suggests that retailers are positioning for a pretty solid holiday season. But we're also seeing shifts in the consumer. The consumer may still spend, but what the employment figures suggest is that they're spending on quick service restaurants, not full service restaurants, that they're bundling their entertainment and their food, bowling alleys, movie theaters, rather than going to expensive restaurants. When my kids were young, we did a lot of bundling.
Yeah, that's true. You want a clean move.
Consumer that is being a bit pickier and choosier on how they spend their dollars. So overall, we're seeing some strength in trade. We didn't see the same
At 5 minutes.
in hospitality. We're seeing a consumer that
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. One long, one short.
on how they spend their
If it chops, both gonna blow.
Neela, I just want everybody to understand before we go further here, and we have just time for one more question, but that you're going to give us 3 weeks of this preliminary data, and then you're not going to give, well, you'll give us the preliminary data, but we'll focus in the 4th week on the more important, which I guess will be next week, the monthly report. And that's the one that has corresponded reasonably well with what's going on, certainly in the private sector BLS, but also in the overall number as well. Are you seeing other impacts out there, Neela, some of the challenges that the job market might be facing? AI is one of them. Tariffs are another. The layoffs and the shutdown. Are those 3 areas where you're able to see?
Yeah, you can hedge on evals. Some firms let you do that, like Apex, Tradeify, bulenox. Other firms with consistency, you can't gamble.
Next week, we'll give you a number, and that number will be more curative, will be more predictable, and like you said, more reflective.
Yeah,
of
4
what's
more
going on
minutes.
in the labor market. And yes, the government
I'm nervous.
takes a toll when it comes to contracting employment tied to federal spending. And we are seeing some effects on AI. There was a great paper published by our partners at Stanford University showing that early career has had an impact in AI-exposed fields from AI spending. Now, the question is whether this is a short-term hiring impact that leads to longer-term productivity gains. That's what we're waiting to see. And if so, that could lead to more.
Neela, I have to unfortunately cut you off because, believe it or not, we have actual government data coming out at 8:30. I know it's not usual and it's a big surprise, but thank you so much for bringing us this data and for joining us this morning. Andrew, back to you.
Okay, thanks for that, Steve. Thanks for that, Neela. Coming up, as Steve just mentioned, we're going to get September retail sales and PPI data, and then later, a veteran of Democratic presidential campaigns and Democratic consultant James Carville. He's going to join us this morning. We're going to discuss his latest op-ed, Out with the Woke, In with the Rage. You don't want to miss this. Squawk Box, come right back.
Goldman Sachs active ETFs. Designed to deliver outcomes. Driven by more than 150 years of rigor. Not just active.
All right, 2 minutes.
Zoe?
Yeah. From meeting for coffee?
Megan, I love you.
To meeting the family. At Credit One Bank, we believe having the credit and rewards for the little moments today can lead to even bigger ones tomorrow. Credit One Bank, for what's ahead.
Rather than get rich quick, I believe in get rich slow. The high yield cash account at Public actually had higher rates than anything else I was able to find online. I don't want to be losing sleep over having made risky investments. I needed something stable that could really give me long-term financial benefits. I know my money's working hard for me, and I know I can access it anytime I need it.
Harry and David is small batch, gourmet, and delicious. So, of course, they run out fast. Celebrate the joy of giving with
All right, we're about to start.
from Harry and David. Iconically American, delicious traditions made to share. Order now before they're gone.
It's the biggest sale of the year at Dick's. Score up to 30% off Nike, up to 40% off hoodies and sweatshirts from
I'll do like 10 seconds before the start.
And up to 50% off table tennis tables. Shop in store and on Dicks.com. Don't miss Black Friday deals at Dick's.
Weeknights. Ever since the White House changed hands, we've seen an endless spate of acquisitions. That might make your eyes glaze over, not mine. These deals are creating some incredible bargains.
Mad Money, weeknight 6 Eastern and streaming on CNBC+.
Yeah, hold on, I'm gambling right now. Give me a second.
Order filled.
Order filled.
Order filled.
When expectations are high, there's no room for uncertainty.
Worst time.
Your logo needs to look great, on the right gear, and arrive on time. And that starts with
No.
Visit 4imprint.com.
You don't.
4imprint for certain.
I started Kitsch with one goal, rethinking
it's
how we
chop.
care for our hair.
Fuck.
Our rice water shampoo and conditioner bars are packed with proteins, vitamins, and amino acids which support healthy hair growth. Find out more at mykitsch.com.
Order filled.
Yeah, I blew.
Light therapy mask,
Yep, both ways blown. Oh no, I'm on YouTube. Yeah.
Find out how you can improve your skin at omniluxled.com.
Yeah, what a trashy data. That was such crap. Ah, waste some money.
Movie night perfect your box. Build your own incredible snack box at nuts.com and get
Yeah, low volume. I shouldn't gamble on a holiday. That was stupid. Alright, let me start the giveaway. Hold on, guys.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. Rick Santelli here, live at CME HQ with the breaking news of the morning. Finally, some real news. PPI, Producer Price Index, for September, a bit late. Headline number coming in, matching expectations of up 0.3. That would be the warmest since it was up 0.7 in July, which actually just a couple of months ago, at least based on this data, if we strip out the food and add food and energy in, it becomes up 0.1. That's cooler than expected. Up 0.1 would be the lightest since it was, well, minus 0.1 last month. And if we look at what's going on, adding food, energy, and trade, we also get up 0.1. Final demand on a year-over-year perspective, up 2.7. 2.7 would equal where we were in May. To find a higher number, you're going to March when it was over 3%. If we look at food and energy, stripping those out, it becomes up 2.6, cooler than expected, 0.2 less than the rear view mirror, which was 2.8. And if we look at finally ex-food, ex-energy trade year over year, 2.9, exactly as expected. This is the only number here that really is, much higher than our last number, 2.8, which was our final. If we look at 2.9 here, 2.9 would be the lightest, well, just since we had the 3.5 in March. Finally, let's go to retail sales. Headline number up 0.2. This is half of what we were looking for. Up 0.2 is definitely on the light side. And if we look at the rear view mirror, we had up 0.6. Up 0.2 would be the lightest since it was a minus number back in May when it was minus 0.8. Now let's take out autos, and we see the number actually moves up. Very unusual. It becomes up 0.3. That would be the best number going back to, well, last month up 0.7. Prior to that, up 0.4, but that was back in July. Ex-autos, ex-gas, up 0.1, still positive, but this is lighter than expectations. And finally, the core retail sales, or what we call the control number, comes in as a minus 0.1. We were expecting a positive 0.3. But to be fair, these numbers have been rather lofty. In the rear view mirror, we have up 0.6. So that was a solid number, but up 0.1 would be the weakest number. We have to go back a bit. That would be the weakest number going all the way back to August of 24 when we were minus 0.2. There's actually one number left. This is a November Philly Fed non-manufacturing service sector number. Comes in at minus 16.3. These numbers have been negative all year. So minus 16.3 is not shocking. It's actually the least negative since we're in July when it was minus 10.3. The last positive number we had here was October of 24. October of 24. So service sector in Philadelphia, nothing to write home about. What's going on in the marketplace on the 10-year is very important. We're getting very, very close to 4%. We're now hovering at 401. That's minus 2 basis points. For the entire year of 2025, we have had 6 closes under 4%. It's a big psychological area. We settled last year at 457, and we heard the Treasury Secretary say, the best Treasury return in 6 years. There's a lot of distortions there due to COVID. The reality is minus 55 basis points is not a huge positive, but it is a positive nonetheless. Many were expecting significant time under 4%. That's why this number and this level is so important. Back to you.
Okay, Rick, thank you. Steve Leisman joins us with more on this data. Steve, your encapsulation of everything we've just heard. We've been hungry for data. What do you think?
Reporter's notebook, Becky. I couldn't remember where to find the retail sales report. It's been that long, but I finally got it. So I don't know why. I just had a brain freeze right there. Looking at the data here, Rick is correct. We had this, of course he's always correct, but correct to emphasize, I'd say this decline in motor vehicle sales. I think there was an expectation of an increase because of what was happening in the EV market. Well, it all added up as far as the census is concerned to a 0.3 decline. You had clothing and accessories go down as well. We're looking at this number, why? It's an old number. Why are we concerned? I'll tell you why. One is because it'll feed into the calculation of the GDP that you're going to get sometime in the next couple weeks for the third quarter. And it creates the starting point for retail sales, consumer spending for the fourth quarter. So the idea that it's a little lackluster is going to give us a lower starting point. It may cause some GDP estimates to come down. And remember, there's this tension between the higher GDP reports and the lackluster employment we've had. So we're trying to figure out how those two come together. That's part of the process here that this helps. It doesn't obviously answer the questions. Looking at the data from PPI, one of the things that stood out to me was the food being up 1.1%. You'll remember that the Treasury or the administration backed off on 200 items when it came to food, although it's not really going to be that big an effect, but it's something worth watching whether or not eventually bringing off those tariffs and more when it comes, if they do more when it comes to food, will have an effect on prices. What we're looking for now, next step, guys, is how all this feeds into the PCE, the Fed's Preferred Inflation Indicator. Andrew.
Steve, don't go anywhere, because I want to get your perspective and Rick's on this, because just a few minutes ago, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was with us, and he commented on all the commentary coming from the Fed. Take a listen.
I think it's time for the Fed to move back into the background like it used to do, calm things down, and work for the American people.
Order
set
submitted.
Monetary policy on a good course. That this isn't this isn't sport; it's people's lives, and I think we just need to calm down.
Okay, I don't know who wants to go first.
I'll go
Rick?
first. Listen, I don't know that I agree with the comment they need to work more for the people. I think this committee's working hard for the people, but I couldn't agree more that they need to fade into the background. They were never meant to be monsters of the financial markets. They were never meant to have the type of power over the economy they do, whether it's interest rates on reserves, using the balance sheet to tweak policy, using reverse repo parking lots for liquidity designations. All of this is relatively new. Much of it happened during crisis periods, whether it was a credit crisis or, of course, COVID. And I really do think they need to melt into the background. I think it's wrong that we have people that know the names of Fed governors. Listen, the superstar status is never and was never meant to go and be on the back of the monster from Jekyll Island that was created back in 1913.
Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree they're working for the American people. I think they're trying to do the best job they possibly can. There is a debate, and this is actually the article that I've written about, are they talking too much? I would point out that at the end of the day, the market mostly knows what the Fed is going to do and is able to price in the Fed correctly. It's very few instances where the market gets it wrong. And so despite the cacophony and the chaos that looks like it's out there and the Fed talking too much, the market has a way of distilling this in a way that I think is beneficial in the sense that they know what's coming ahead of time and there are a few surprises. On the balance sheet and the complication, hey, monetary policy is complicated. It's not necessarily rocket science. Sometimes it's harder. And the reason is this, is because the Fed hit the zero lower bound, couldn't cut interest rates anymore. And so they had to do something else that a lot of people agree on, and they increased the size of the balance sheet. Now, there's a big argument about whether or not it's regulatory or the Fed can get by with a smaller balance sheet. That's what Governor Myron is suggesting. I think that's what the Treasury Secretary is suggesting. Bring it on. Let's have the discussion. Should the Fed have the lower balance sheet, reduce the reserves out there, create the possibility of some of this volatility in the repo market, or do you want to live a different way? It's a good debate. Treasury Secretary is not wrong. It's one worth having. The Fed has decided to do it a little differently. I don't know. It's something worth discussing.
All right, Rick, Steve, thank you guys. Right now I want to bring in Brian Levitt, Chief Market Strategist at Invesco. Brian, good luck. Take everything you just heard, all the data you just got, and tell me what you'd be doing in the market these days.
I actually found it all to be pretty enticing for the market. So what you're looking at
data or
the data in general. I mean, clearly it's a slowing economic environment. When you
why is that enticing? Because it brings the Fed back in?
Yeah, it's still resilient. Inflation expectations are contained. So if you're looking at a 4% Treasury rate, what is that telling you? It's telling you the real yield's at about 1.5%. So that's weaker growth. Inflation expectations remarkably stable at 2.5%. So we're in a mid-cycle slowdown. The expectation is the Fed lowers rates. You get a reacceleration, not to a new higher level of growth, but back towards more of a trend-like growth environment. And that should be conducive for risk assets.
And that means you look at the slowing job market as something that entices the Fed back in to ensure you get another cut, but you don't think it's a serious slowdown? Because if you did, it might change your opinion.
Yeah, that would change my opinion. And if it was a serious slowdown, I think I would be seeing things like credit spreads blowing out, bankers tightening lending standards, end of cycle stuff. In fact, what you're actually getting globally is leading indicators picking up a bit. And if you look 2023 to 2025, the global leading indicators have been remarkably stable but below trend, which is why it's been really a mega cap growth type of environment. So the expectation now is lower rates, fiscal support around the world, pickup in global activity, which can all help to potentially broaden out this market a bit.
We've had several guests who have come on even today and suggested that they are looking at the other parts of the market that have been neglected, the value sectors, versus what's happening in technology. It sounds like you are kind of leaning into that, the same thing you just said.
Yeah, all those parts of the market need a catalyst. So whether it's the international markets, value, smaller capitalization, all of that needs a catalyst. And the catalyst would come by the way of policy easing and a pickup in activity and perhaps some weakness in the dollar. Now, that was the hope coming into this year, and it seemed like we were heading there, certainly in the international markets. Liberation Day likely delayed that because it stalled Fed easing. So that's why I've been focused so much on inflation expectations in this period. We know headline inflation is going to tick up a bit, but with inflation expectations modest, real yields coming down, to me that signals rate cuts, and that signals you couple the rate cuts with fiscal policy in other parts of the world, that should be a better economic outcome.
And what does that mean for the end of this year, the beginning of next year? We've seen a lot of volatility in the market. That's going to continue?
Yeah, no, I think it's actually a better risk environment with less volatility. The volatility, I mean, everybody was so focused on the AI trade, but volatility is almost always the result of policy uncertainty. And if you start looking...
We're about to start the race. I'm going to pause the entry.
When non-profitable tech companies sold off, you could almost time that to Jerome Powell saying there's diverging views at the Fed. And you started to find a bottom when you started to get some indication that maybe December's back in play. And so if you can, you're right.
Well, that's an excellent point. Just the idea that the credit markets and the private credit markets were the ones that were really kind of shaky on that idea, because a lot of that debt has been written on the idea that rates are going to come down.
Exactly, precisely. And so this gives, you talk about these reports. No, I don't want to see payroll slowing. I don't want to see retail under duress. But there's a different story from a macro perspective versus what it ultimately means for the stock market.
Okay. Brian, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Up next, his vision for the Democratic Party. James Carville will join us. Squawk Box will be right back.
Only Beta could do this.
We're the only company that builds our own chargers, and we've flown on that network all the way across the country, out to the Santa Monica Pier, and back to Vermont. We're the only company that's doing military, cargo, logistics, medical, and passenger. And we're the first company to complete electric aviation transitions.
Order filled.
Oh shit, I didn't even know that.
Milestones that really matter.
Order
building
submitted.
an electric aerospace company. And there's only one company who's completed all of that, and it's
Order
Beta.
filled.
All systems go.
Yeah, get your 10 points in before the thing is over. You got 6, so you can still get 4 easily.
For a select few. By bringing public and private markets together, we're transforming what's possible for you and your clients.
I can add you in. I can restart it. Hold on. Oh yeah, I'll add you in. Give me a second. Who else need to get in? I didn't pause. I'm actually restarting it. Alright, this is it, right? Me? Okay, I'm gonna add you in. Anybody else? That's a lot of you guys. Alright, that's it. I'm not adding anybody else. Have a good Black
If you think that that's the issue, but how do you deal with it on the other end? And there clearly are even two camps within the debate about that.
Oh, he has the points?
A lot of quote-unquote capitalists.
Yeah, you do. Hey, can I get your Twitter so I can DM you?
There is Mamdani, who is self-described socialist. Where do you think the party needs to be on that score?
First of all,
Congrats, bud.
I believe in capitalism. I don't capitalism about. I've seen all this Mandami socialism is like Sweden, is it like something else? I don't know. People have different terms. But what I know is we got to get on them. We have terrible disparities in wealth. We have a lot of immorality in our tax code. Somebody tell me the morality of carried interest and I'll fall out of this chair. And there are things that we can do to make this country work for more people. You know, Andrew, the other thing now, electricity cutoffs are up 21%. I mean, that to me, in a nation like this, it just kind of produces kind of wealth, and we got 40% of our people just going, maybe more than that, going paycheck to paycheck.
Here's the question, though. And it goes back to really sort of how you approach the problem. You know, arguably one of the problems with electricity in this country is we don't have enough of it. And as a result, and by the way, there's some monopolistic practices as well, but it's a combination of the two. You need more supply. When it comes to housing, arguably, if you're a capitalist, you'd say we need more supply. If you're a socialist, you'd say we need rent stabilization. And that becomes, I think, the crux of so much of this.
Well, I believe the supply will bring, if you have a supply to start to bring prices down. But, you know, the other thing, when you talk about costs going up, what can you do about costs going up? One of the things you can do is give people a raise. All right? I know people say, oh, we haven't raised the minimum wage since, I don't know, God knows when. All right? And so if prices go up 3% a year and your salary goes up 1%, it's not doing you any good. And we should put pressure, and then we can do something about the minimum wage. We can do something to have a tax code that profits companies from paying people. That's the problem here, is the people don't have any money. And you say, well, electricity, it's about, they didn't open this.
Yeah, I sent you a DM on Twitter, okay?
Missouri and Iowa.
Congrats again.
Like that I doubt are overregulated states. But sure, about the housing, we didn't have enough housing supply. So what do? Let's build more houses. And how do we build more houses? Well, we tax rich people and we use that money to build more houses. That's my idea.
How do you ultimately, and maybe I'd say who within the party right now do you think represents the party? You know, Scott Besson, by the way, said he thought that Mamdani represents the party. I don't know if that's true either.
No one represents the party. The only person that can represent the party is a presidential nominee who will be chosen by the party members who vote in the primaries. Congressional parties don't have or generally don't, and we certainly don't, have a defining person. And that's what people say, well, there's no leader of the party. No, there won't be, but that's what Democrats are going to decide. And they'll also decide in what direction that the party is going on. You know, the greatest game in the world. Well, who's the leader? Well, I don't know. Is it, no, it's not you. Well, maybe it's just, no, I don't believe that. Well, there can't be one. And so, but what can happen is we can make a good argument and we can win a ton of elections while everybody in the press is sitting on the table saying, well, Democrats have lost the Hispanic vote. They've lost the young vote. They've lost the male vote. Of course, it all came back. You just got to win elections, but we're not going to have a leader until we have a presidential nominee.
Well, let me ask you a different question. I don't know if you could see the screen while we were talking. We threw up a headline about Senator Schumer, who is facing quite a backlash even within the Democratic Party. I'm curious where you think he lands as a continued face of all of this, or where you think Hakeem Jeffries lands relative to some of the other newcomers.
Well, I'm certainly not a person about the Senate. I don't get involved in that business. The 24 Democratic senators, as I appreciate it, can do anything they want. But I do know for a fact that Senator Schumer is quite popular and quite thought of. But the Senate has to make its decisions, and 24 Democratic senators can do whatever it wants. So I don't have any sense. I don't know. I just don't follow that.
Let me ask you a different question about taxes, because I think taxes, historically, you know, Republicans have called for lower taxes. Democrats have called for higher taxes. Philosophically, and given the inequality and wealth disparity in the country, what do you think is an approach that actually makes sense and makes sense to those being taxed as well, even those at the highest rates?
Let's try 39.5. Which we had during the 90s, which is the most prosperous decade we've had since World War II. Why don't we try that? And there's not an iota of evidence that says that cutting taxes on wealthy people creates anything other than more wealth for wealthy people. So, and also, if you look at under Democratic presidents, economic growth, stock market growth, GDP growth, it's not even close. So this is raising taxes on high-income people to a rate of 40%. It's not only the economically wise thing to do, it's the moral thing to do.
Do you think people will leave? I mean, one of the things that we've seen, obviously, within the United States, and I thought this, you know, look, 10 years ago, if you had asked me, whether people would leave New York City or leave certain states. I didn't believe it. I don't think I appreciated, especially now, you know, people of great wealth have access to private planes, can jump on planes. It's a whole new, the mobility of people has shifted in a way that I don't think I expected.
But if you got to pay all the things that people have paid for in this country and all the sacrifices they've made, if you can't live in a country with a 40% tax rate on your income above $500,000, then go, dude. We don't need you. Go somewhere else. And you sit here and drive on the highways and your workforce that's been developed by American taxpayers, the defense that you got, and, you know, 40% is too much, go to Switzerland.
Real quick, though, what do you think about a lot of the blue states in America? And I say that because in New York, you know, most people at the highest rates are paying close to 55%, maybe more if they're living in New York City. Sometimes closer to 60%. What's sort of the top for you?
I don't know. I mean, I know it was 39.5 in the 90s. Okay, that was what. And by the way, Manhattan existed in the 90s. It still exists today. If all of millionaires are leaving, why do I run over them left and right when I'm walking down Park Avenue? But again, if a person's value of the country is relative only to its tax code, then that's a moral judgment that you've made. But you can't tell me that we can't have a tax rate of 40% on, you know, all income above, say, $500,000, $400,000 a year. You just can't tell me that. You can't tell me that carried interest is moral. Thank you.
Oh, well, you and I will agree violently on carried interest. I've been talking about carried interest for close to 20 years now. James Carville, I want to thank you for being with us this morning. Very, very much. Hope we can talk again. You bet. We're going to be right back on Squawk in just a moment.
Is the season to score the perfect gift at Dick's. Find top styles from brands like Nike and Maxfly, and trending looks from Adidas, FP Movement, and more. Plus, shop kids' gifts that wow, from bikes to sneakers. Shop in-store or on the Dick's app and online. Every holiday starts at Dick's.
Funny industry. Have a good week.